So good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to speak here. So as a really long bio just now that you probably noticed that I'm not a system person. I am more on the signal processing theory and algorithm person. So I won't be able to give you a big picture because I don't know the big picture. I'm not as well informed as you guys to know the big picture, so I'm actually here to learn from you. But I thought that a problem that I have started working on in the last couple of months may be of some interest to you as related to the theme of the panel. Is on privacy in AI learning in IoT. So there are a lot of buzzwords in here, and the reason of the buzzword is that my last research grant ran out in December. So I'm putting together a proposal, so I want to have as many buzzwords in it as possible. If you're academic, you know what I mean. So I thought privacy is good, AI is good, and IoT, as people have said it here, is hot, right? So I thought, what would be a good, interesting problem so I can put all these things together? So, and I think a bit about this, and this seems to be quite reasonable as I've talked to folks, and many of experts like yourself, working in industry and in academia. And many of them share with me this kind of a scenario that you have at the edge a great numbers of IoT sensors, cameras, smart meters, Amazon Echo, your smartphone, your wearables. They're all gathering data, right? So the data has to go somewhere, okay? So and many of the business right now geared towards gathering all these data to build AI models. And there are good reasons of doing that. You know, especially I'm quite sure that many of you are looking at the conference programs, and then there's a keynote just before this panels talking about deep learning. So deep learning, there are two main things about deep learning in terms of the training data. First, you have to have a lot of training data. And number two is that your training data have to be very, very diverse. So in order to build good model, it is very important to gather as many data from as many people, as diverse, geographically diverse sites as possible. So that's the kind of the scenario that I try to understand and try to find what are the challenging part. And it seems that the number one challenging problem that people are facing is in fact privacy. Many of these data are highly sensitive, contain personal identifiable informations. Obviously, surveillance videos, contains imagery of your house, and even things, you know, Amazon, the Echo is listening to your every conversation, picking up words, and you don't even know where your speech, your conversations, private conversations with your families, may end up somewhere somebody is listening in, right? So privacy is one of the top concern. And of course, different countries have different privacy laws. In US, we have compared with Europe, we have a somewhat more relaxed in terms of data gathering. But in specific domains, for example, in medicine, in educations, privacy, they are very stringent data gathering, data collection law, and many of the times, if you want to collect any data at a school or at a clinic, even if you have, as a university researchers, you need the IRB clearance, but you also need the cooperations of the educational school board, and also get a consent form from parents. If you want to get videos at a classroom, if only one single parent is uncomfortable not turning in the consent form, then you are not able to actually record any video in a classroom. So there are a lot of laws, in terms of specific domains. And technology, of course, is one of the solutions that I'm trying to work on. But there are also other types of solutions, in terms of enforcements, in terms of establishing a clear privacy policy Nowadays, a very popular design paradigms called the privacy by design has been quite popular in the last couple of years and has been adopted in Google, in terms of many major companies, that privacy becomes one of the attributes in terms of the design, and they have advertised to their users that if you trust me because I have put privacy as one of the top criteria design. Now, of course, you have to trust them. Nobody actually read through the 40 pages of the agreements when you upgrade your iPhone or buy sign up for any of these services. So technology solutions, to me, is still a much cleaner solutions. However, to educating the customers and obviously trying to be compliant with the law, conveying certain trust to the consumer is obviously also very important. So, but looking at this, I'm trying to solve these protection privacy in terms of gathering data to build AI models. So, looking at the literature in the past couple of months, I identified a number of existing techniques. So the first one is, it's called a local AI model. So what it is that locally, at local edge, you start to build a model that only describes the local data. And then you propagate this AI local models, the statistical models to the cloud. So the way that the privacy is protected is because you are essentially distilling out all the specific sensitive information of the data and build the model using the aggregate statistics and send it out. There are other techniques, especially in the realms of deep learning, by propagating, for example, the gradient informations, or using a generative adversarial network by sending out the GAN models so that you can regenerate some of the data that resemble the statistics of the local data. So there's quite a few ways of doing that, at the same time protecting privacy of the local raw data. So now, the couple of drawbacks is this. Number one is that it's basically push some of the complexity to the local edge, meaning that the local IoT machines will have to build a model. And there are also a scalability issue. The scalability issue is that if you trained the local model using a tiny bit of data, because you're running at a local edge IoT sensor, which have a tiny bit of data, that model is highly sensitive. It's noise prone. You will have a significant performance degradations if you are scaling it up to thousands, millions, or billions of numbers of IoT sensors. Alternatively, there is another solution that people have been working on in the past decades, looking at the sanitization techniques or using special encryption. So for the sanitization techniques, the dominant approach is something called the differential privacy framework. This is something that Microsoft has been pushing quite hard. So what it is a very theoretically rigorous way of adding noise. Basically, is that it will inject enough amount of noise into the local data so that individual sensors will not be able to reveal its identity, that it will be at least close to the majority. So you basically, at the cloud, when you're gathering the data, you will not be able to uniquely identify specific users. So as adding noise will, in fact, affect the performance, there is a privacy and utility trade-off for differential privacy. And this is in the case particularly worse for multimedia, sort of the area that I have worked quite a bit on, is because the multimedia, videos, images, audio, they make a great deal of sense to human beings because our intelligence goes through thousands of years, has basically trained on so many data that we are able to recognize things even if they're extremely noisy. So the privacy cannot be protected despite the fact that you have added a lot of noise to your data. So differential privacy is a kind of I think, especially for the multimedia data or signals, is somewhat of an unreliable platform. A far more reliable platform is to use a specialized encryptions such as the homomorphic encryptions or gobble circuits. So these are special cryptographical techniques that allows encryption, but simultaneously also allows certain types of computation to be performed on the encrypted data. So the data are encrypted, but when they send up to the cloud, they're never decrypted. The computations, the trainings of the AI model will be done entirely on these encrypted data because they have special property that allows certain types of computations to be performed. Unfortunately, this types of techniques is extremely slow. It requires you to essentially rewrite the whole AI thing. So you spend a lot of money investing on deep learning's framework, and then you want to change it to encrypted domain-based deep learning platforms. You essentially have to rewrite the entire code. And the penalty is anywhere from 10 to 100 times slower. So last and this is something that I have been working on in the last couple of months, so I don't know whether it will work or not. And then there are some other groups also working in similar ideas. It's essentially similar in veins to the types of lightweight encryptions that some of the speakers have already talked about. Essentially is a types of encryption is very, very lightweight, but also allows some types of computation, not a full-blown computations, to work on those data so that when they are sent to the cloud, you can run using the usual deep learning framework to build the models without decrypting it. Okay, so some of the techniques that we and other groups have been exploring, looking at semantic hashing, using a random neural network, and then we find out that it has a better privacy versus utility trade-off than differential privacy, and at the same time have pretty nice security properties. Again, this is pretty new stuff that I don't think it's definitely not the final solution to the problems, but I find it to be quite interesting. And if you have experience in this area, and then if you find out that this is not a big problem, there may be better solutions, I'll definitely appreciate you let me know. And if you're interested in working on these problems, I'll also be happy to talk with you afterwards. Thank you.